It's far from clear why Pittsburgh wants to be reminded of itself, but since they insist, I suppose I'll oblige them. Evan Nauer once said to me, I see the same faces, I walk the same streets. Perhaps that was his way of saying, I know you were attacked blindside as a child and your mother had to move her house. Maybe we will do that to you again. Or it could have been his wormy jet set school way of saying, we know where you live. I remember him saying that is good enough. In 1984, I believe it was, I worked at the Falk Medical Library at Pitt, when Chancellor Wesley Posvar had written the Federal Emergency Management Agency Constitution for Reagan. And the Hillman Library had a collection of the Warren Report in a window that overlooked the layout of a Broadway, so to speak. It was virtually a film set. I always found that strange. Sitting there as though looking out a window into Dealey Plaza reading the Warren Commission. Posvar lived in Westmoreland County with Mel Gibson's father. Be that as it may, I worked with a woman, stocky woman, who was a Steelers fan, I'm sure. And she said, oh, Mondale scares me. I'm voting for Reagan. He's so tall. And she looked at me with a wink, like, I know I'm capturing for you the irony of the depth of Pittsburgh voters. I, of course, was supposed to register that on the level of a naive idealist, which is all they expected of me. They have a governor named Josh Shapiro, who's sort of something of a little Nicole when it comes to being the walrus. He forges my name on Israeli bombs, thinking he'll get into heaven that way, I suppose. And they drop these bombs on children in tents. So given that I warned people about Wattenmaker and Shulman, I reported in the post office. The hate in Pittsburgh towards me is virtually indescribable. Shulman was arrested, and they chased me out of town at his behalf. And his partner was the famous Leslie Katz, who I scolded, Leslie, what do you think you're saying about me? I behaved unimpeachably. It was like she was dating Mr. Rogers. And the Israelis came swooping with King Crimson saying, Mr. Rogers could have saved John Lennon. Jimmy Curry wants to dooey to Leslie Katz. She was a partner of Shulman. They set up the Poetry Group Jabberwocky together. She graduated valedictorian from Ellis. His partner in the museum heist that was arrested was from Ellis. So it's a pretty heavily provoked racket there. I mean, they hit their own nerve when they attacked Jimmy Curry. I was a fan of Mazeroski. I loved Bob Prince. Ian Wattenmaker didn't. But I'm not trying to loyalty oath their bullshit. I traded my doubles in baseball, bubblegum cards. I got at the newsstand, went to Auden Race learn the Lord's Prayer through a little Bible. You could look into it with a magnifying glass and learn the Lord's Prayer. I didn't favor the army men, but then I knew Eisenhower, Kennedy. My grandfather worked for the Post Dispatch. I knew civilized, intelligent people. And the Vietnam War was still percolating. It got pretty bad, and the paranoid zeitgeist of Lyndon Johnson got pretty bad. And I thought it was pretty weird the way children were chased around by murderers and stolen cars, and rednecks feeding their meat from the driver's seat at them through windows while they tried to deliver papers in East End, threatening to light them on fire and so on, and have the whole city stick up for the brutal molesters doing that kind of thing. I always found that very odd, that Pittsburgh based its civic pride on defending John Schulman, defending brutal car thieves, stalking deaf victims of torture, claiming someone who was raised in the proximity of Mr. Rogers. I met him when I was a baby in arms. Was there for threatening the Jewish girls. It's a very weird place. It's a very weird place. And there's nothing to stop them from making good on their threats and insane ideas about what, but they just pick a hallucination and make it real. I mean, given everything I've described, it's verifiable fact. It's verifiable fact that I went to the post office to report suspicions of John Schulman defrauding them. Was chased out by the information circuit for starting rumors about distinguished people, and so on. I mean, Leslie Katz being his partner, car thieves ruling the roost, and working with cinema moguls. It wasn't just Mel Gibson. George Romero was in the script that was sent me from Israel. Brecker used to laugh and brag about dragging me through glass. He had Thomas Gordon laughing his head off, describing how I was dragged through glass. And it's Pittsburgh. I mean, this is verifiable Pittsburgh weird reality. And they get these wormy jet set types like Evan Nauer to sum it up with, I walk the same streets and see the same faces. And that's his summation. And they're Weasley little Hitler. Governor Shapiro forges your name on bombs they drop on tents. It's a screamingly dysfunctional idea of an academic society. Screamingly dysfunctional. At the Penn News, I was expected to subordinate my ideas to editorialists who said right out that they supported Iran-Contra. They support President Reagan for Iran-Contra. Selling missiles to Iran to raise money to mine Nicaraguan harbors was just peachy. I mean, there were a lot of things like that. The academic society was supposed to cater to an Israeli Defense Forces crazy who disguised his voice as a Palestinian and went on the radio claiming to be Abdul the terrorist. And of course, laugh when he goes on to write speeches for Donald Trump. That's Pittsburgh, normal. It's Pittsburgh's weird normal. When I proved that Wells L. Brown was talking about a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood and the administration of the Catholic services, was graffitiing paid news with sly flow charting of my being lured to Maine for this Venus flytrap. They expect you to take Mel Gibson and George Romero's word for how they spin that. John Shulman would never lie. They have the number 2 attorney, a namesake of Nosferatu, whose real name, Miles Kirshner. Sitting on the walnuts, this is a place that preaches fairness in human relations. I forswears bigotry and prejudice. And he would sit on the walnuts at the top of his lungs going, I know, I just hate Arabs. I don't know why. I just hate Arabs. He was a drug kingpin and a thief. It was number 2 law. Martin Nuremberg would preach to these weirdos that their job as attorney is to convict somebody even if they know they're innocent. It's just their job. You're not supposed to ask questions. And they had a fraternity party where everybody gathered around a fish tank in which there was a piranha. Whoa, Pink Floyd. Very crazy. And they all talked under their breath about the nature of reality. The nature of reality. And of course, if you want to know what that was about, read Hitler's table talks. I mean, Hitler was an asshole. He was a royal pain in the ass. He fucked everything up royally for a really long time. And they make these histrionics about it where you're supposed to clap yourself on the back because you stood up for Jews. No! It's common decency that you stand up for your fellow man. The only person that has anything to explain are people who didn't stand up for the dispossessed by the Nazi Germans. The table talks is garbage, but somewhere Nosferatu got his claws on Israel's a goblin. And Pitt is like a little Israel. He got his claws on this table talk stuff and said, maybe it's true. The weak must be eliminated by the strong. And that's now what Jewish means. That's not me being apoplectic or whatever the word is. It's not. Congress says that's Zionism. Zionism is Jewishness. So therefore, Hitler's table talks are Jewishness. And they have this guy named Will Zell who promotes Joseph Goebbels and the Green Party talking about injecting people to save the human race. And he sets up a Venus flytrap war game on Mount Desert Island with the help of Peter Gabriel, who called it an experience park while they blew up the Jackson Laboratories. Jackson Laboratories got experience parked, right? Like the Wichita figure skaters. They got experience parked. You know, Robert Kennedy, God knows what Fu Manchu elixir turned him into a zombie of Donald Trump, but this promoter of Joseph Goebbels and his table talk about the attack of the onslaught in the 80s is a figurehead of the Jewish Defense League, according to Pittsburgh Weirdos, because he was defending Leslie Katz. he was going to hire a girl with tattoos as the Grim Reaper, pointing at her vagina and needle tracks from the Maxwell house, and take it out of poor Queerball, who was frustrated over Leslie for reasons that even John Schulman kept sort of hush hush. Because I scolded her, Leslie, what are you suggesting I about? I do. I mean, it was like Mr. You're going to tell Mr. Rogers to to don't even suggest such an outrageous thing. Now, admittedly, I'm more like Captain Kangaroo. At least that's the one I preferred. But it would be just as slovenly of a thing to do. And this guy promoting Nazis, propaganda minister who is sanctified as the sacred truth by these weirdos that call themselves Pittsburgh. It's a signifier of the Jewish Defense League, because Nosferatu, who has decided that Hitler's table talks are the truth. And if there's going to be a mighty war machine, it's going to be the Zeos versus the rest of us. And Pitt doesn't want to hear it. When I went to report what Gail Burstyn really did, they told me to put my hands behind my back. Let's get this on record. It was October 17, 1993, and I had a 6 o'clock appointment with the law school. My father was senior faculty of philosophy of education. And I was told not to bother anybody else, but I could stay on campus, so I went there politely to cancel. I went politely to a pre-existing appointment to cancel, not bothering anybody else. A pre-existing appointment to cancel, and they arrested me for defiant trespass because it was conveniently initialed DT. And these wormy jet setters like Evan Nauer come around. We see the same faces. We walk the same streets. Will Zell Brahms Focus reported. You can play that through your carrot tape logic machine, Mr. Milnes.